I spent 70 years chasing happiness. Here's what I finally learned. Part one, the early years, chasing the wrong things. Well, now, let me tell you something, young fella. If I had a nickel for every time I thought I'd finally found happiness, I'd probably have, well, enough nickels to buy myself a decent cup of coffee at that old diner down the road, back when a cup only cost a dime. I'm 90 years old this year. Yeah, 90. Imagine that. A full lifetime of laughs, tears, mistakes, and maybe, just maybe, a few lessons worth passing on. I spent a good chunk of that time, maybe 70 years or so, chasing after happiness like a quid chasing a squirrel. Round and round, never quite catching it, and when I thought I had, poof, it was gone again. I reckon happiness is one of those things folks don't really understand till they've been knocked around a bit by life. It ain't what you think it is when you're young. When I was a boy, I thought happiness meant toys, shiny new marbles, a slingshot, or that worn out baseball glove Pa got me for my 8th birthday. And truth be told, back then, maybe it was happiness, at least in that moment, but it didn't last. Let me start from the beginning. I was born in 1935 in a little farmhouse just outside of Bloomington, Indiana. Dust storms, long summers, cold winters, and a whole lot of love packed into a tiny house with creaky wooden floors. We didn't have much. Ma cooked on a wood-burning stove and pay worked sunup to sundown on the farm. I used to think we were poor. Heck, maybe we were. But I never went to bed hungry, and Ma always had a way of making a pot of stew stretch 2 more bowls. That's a kind of magic I still don't understand. Back then, I thought when I grew up, I'd have money, real money. That I figured was happiness. I used to stare at those Sears catalogs and think, someday I'm going to have a suit like that. I'll have a shiny car. I'll have a fridge that ain't it always breaking down. That's when I'll be happy. Boy, was I wrong. When I turned 18, I left home with a knapsack, 20 bucks, and a head full of dreams. I joined the Navy, served 4 years, sailed halfway across the world, saw things I never thought I'd see. Some of it was beautiful, the stars over the ocean at night, quiet as prayer. Some of it wasn't. War's got a way of changing a man. But I came back in one piece, and I thought, now it's time. Now I'll make a life worth living, a life full of joy. I got married, had kids, bought a house on credit, worked hard, real hard, 40, 50, sometimes 60 hours a week, climbed ladders and took promotions, made just enough to get by. I chased money like a hound dog, thinking if I could just make a little more, we'd all be happy. But here's the first big lesson I learned. Money don't buy peace of mind. It buys comfort, sure. It buys you time if you're lucky, but it don't fix what's broken inside. You see, I was always restless. Even when we had good times, birthday parties, Sunday barbecues, family trips, I'd sit there thinking about bills, the next project, the next raise. My body was present, but my mind was miles away. I missed a lot of now because I was chasing some later that never came. Now, I ain't telling you money ain't important. It's like gas in your car. You need enough to get where you're going, but you don't need to fill up the trunk with it. But back then, I didn't know that. I kept working and wanting, thinking the next thing would be the thing. Turns out happiness don't live in a bigger house or a nicer car. It lives in little things, quiet things. The smell of fresh coffee in the morning, the sound of your grandkids' laughter, the feel of your wife's hand in yours after 50 years. But I didn't know all that at the time. I had to learn the hard way. Part two. The illusion of success. Now, let me tell you, there's a trap out there that catches a whole lot of folks young and old alike, and it's got a shiny name, success. After the Navy, I got a job at the local paper mill. Wasn't glamorous, but it paid steady. I kept my head down, worked hard, never called in sick unless I was half dead. They started promoting me, first to shift lead, then to supervisor, and eventually I had a corner office. Not that it had a window, mind you, but it felt important. I'd drive home at night in my used Oldsmobile thinking I'd finally made it, wearing a button-up shirt, carrying a briefcase full of paperwork I didn't really understand. But hey, I looked the part. Problem was, while I was busy climbing that ladder, I didn't notice it was leaning against the wrong wall. I missed my daughter's first ballet recital because of a meeting that could have been a phone call. I forgot our anniversary one year. Don't ask me how, I still don't know. My wife, bless her heart, just shook her head and made me sleep on the couch. Deserved it too. I told myself I was doing it for them, for my family. That the long hours and late nights were so they could have a better life. And maybe there was some truth to that. But deep down, I was also doing it for me, for my pride, for my ego. I wanted folks to look at me and say, now there's a man who's done well for himself. Funny thing is, when you chase success for applause, the clapping never lasts. It's like chasing fireworks. You get a burst of light, then it's gone and you're back in the dark wondering what's next. I had colleagues who made more money than me, drove fancier cars, lived in homes so big they needed maps. But you know what? Half of them were miserable. One guy I knew, Jack Simmons, had everything. Vacation homes, tailored suits, even a gold-plated golf club he never used. But he drank himself into an early grave at 53. Loneliest funeral I ever went to. That's when it started to dawn on me. Success without meaning is just a shiny kind of empty. It ain't about what the world sees. It's about what you feel when the noise dies down and you're sitting in your favorite chair, staring out the window with a cup of coffee and no one around to impress. I started asking myself questions I'd been avoiding for years, like, what did I give up to get here? Who'd I become along the way? And was this life I'd built really the one I wanted? Those were heavy questions, but they were the beginning of something important, the beginning of learning how to slow down. Part 3, slowing down to catch up with life. I was in my mid-50s when I finally realized something was off. My back ached more than usual. My knees creaked like that old screen door on our porch, and I was starting to forget where I left things. But more than that, I felt tired. Not just the kind of tired you fix with sleep. I'm talking the soul kind, the kind that makes everything feel heavy, even on a sunny day. One Saturday morning, I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a half-eaten piece of toast and a cold cup of coffee. My wife, Ruth, sat across from me reading the paper. She looked up and said, "You all right, honey?" And I said without thinking, "I don't know." That's when she put the paper down. Ruth wasn't the dramatic type, never made a fuss unless it was about running out of milk. But that morning, she looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Then maybe it's time you found out." Now that right there, that was the spark, the moment I started to slow down. I began taking walks again. Not power walks, not jogging to lose weight, just slow, steady strolls around the neighborhood. I'd watch the birds, wave at the neighbors, smell the lilacs that bloomed every spring and reminded me of my mother's garden. And wouldn't you know it, the world started to look a little different when I wasn't rushing through it. I spent time with my grandkids, real time. Not just watching TV while they played on the floor, but actual conversations. I let them ask silly questions. I told you stories about my childhood, about Pa's mule that used to kick the barn door whenever it heard music. They laughed like I was the funniest man alive. Maybe I was, for them at least. I even started listening more, to Ruth especially. For years, I'd nod and grunt through conversations while my mind was off building spreadsheets in my head. But now I leaned in. I heard her stories, her worries, her dreams. Turns out she still had them, and I'd been missing them for decades. That's when I learned something that changed everything. Happiness isn't in the rush, it's in the pause. In those small, quiet pauses where time slows down just enough for you to feel your own heartbeat, to taste your coffee, to hear the wind rustle through the trees. Folks spend so much time trying to get ahead, they forget to look around. And let me tell you, life ain't something to conquer. It's something to experience. I didn't sell everything and move to the mountains, didn't go off the grid or become some kind of guru. I just started showing up for my own life, being present, being grateful. And slowly I started feeling a kind of peace I'd never known before. Not because life got easier, but because I got quieter. Part 4, what really matters and what doesn't. You know, when you get to be my age, you start going to more funerals than birthdays. Old friends, neighbors, even folks younger than you. And sitting there listening to eulogies and watching faces in the crowd, you start asking the big questions. What really lasts? What really matters? Let me tell you what don't matter. The size of your house. How many zeros are in your bank account? The titles after your name. How many followers you got or who liked your photos. Whether your lawn was perfectly trimmed. All that stuff, it fades. People forget. Heck, you forget. But you know what folks remember? The way you made them feel. That time you showed up when no one else did. The quiet kindness you gave without expecting anything back. The belly laughs around the dinner table. The phone call that came at just the right time. I remember my neighbor Earl. He never made much money, never traveled far. But that man could fix anything with duct tape and a screwdriver. And more important, he listened. Folks loved talking to him because he really heard you. When he passed, the whole street showed up. Not because he was rich or important, but because he mattered. That's the thing I finally learned after 70 years of chasing happiness like a dog chasing shadows. Happiness ain't found. It's created day by day, moment by moment, choice by choice. It ain't out there in some distant future. It's right here in the way you live today. And guess what? It's never too late. You could be 8 or 81 and still choose to stop, run, look around and say, maybe I got what I need right here. Maybe what you've been chasing all along has been trying to catch you. If I had the chance to do it all over again, I wouldn't chase bigger paychecks or shinier things. I'd chase moments. I'd hug longer, laugh louder, forgive quicker. I'd worry less about being someone important and focus more on being someone kind. Because when the sun starts setting on your days, what you hold in your heart ain't your trophies. It's your memories, your people, and your peace. So take it from an old man who spent most of his life looking in the wrong places. Slow down, love deeply, listen more, and don't wait 70 years to start living. If this story meant something to you, even just a little, do me a small favor. Like this video, subscribe if you ain't already, and share it with someone who might need to hear it today. Maybe someone out there still chasing what don't matter. Maybe this is the message they've been waiting for. And hey, leave me a comment below. Tell me what you've learned about happiness. I read every one of them, I truly do. Till next time, Take care of yourself and take time to be here, right here.